Please like and subscribe. We are in the 5th training hall. Glenn is walking through it, and everyone bows to him except the red-haired elf. Glenn tells him to stop pretending to be asleep and get up, lemur. He says it's amazing that he's the only person whose sleeping techniques don't work on him. Glenn says everyone else is working hard, including the head instructor. Lemur says they are just following his orders. He's working with his head while they work with their bodies. Glenn says he doesn't mature even after 50 years. Lemur says people don't change easily. He then asks if he's here because of his youngest grandson. He then tells him that Sylvia also came to see him but didn't expect Glenn to come either. She asked Lemur to make sure he didn't get injured. If Glenn has come to make the same request, he's wasting time, as he won't make any exceptions, even if he's the youngest. Glenn says it's all right and not to lessen the intensity of training, as he doesn't want weaklings. Lima recognizes something, then stops himself and starts acting all giddy, saying he must really love his grandson and some other stuff. Glenn says if he wasn't his friend, he'd be on the floor right now. He tells Lima not to go easy and fail anyone who is unworthy. That way, only the worthy can receive his training. Lemur says he'll do as he wishes. Glenn takes his leave. Lemur thinks about land, wondering what he's like. Then we see his status window, seeing that he's achieved the 3rd rank, making him a 3-star, which then reduces his curse of the bitter cold. Lance says it definitely feels different, and his sensitivity has increased, so his mind feels clearer than before. We see his mother comforting him after training, which is helping him learn his limits, and his status window is helping his growth speed up, but this is just the beginning as their training is notorious for his difficulty, and being a 3-star is just the first step. He needs a good foundation in order to be able to progress smoothly, hopefully, and for him to excel more than anyone else, so those who mock him will have to be clapped. His mother enters the room, saying she's surprised he's still up. He asks what she's doing here so late. She says, since he's going to the training hall, she wants to talk to him before he leaves. Then she asks if he must go, saying she wants to stop him since he never expresses it when he's hurting. And what if he gets badly injured? She says it's not. She doesn't want him to go. How about postponing for a year? He tells her no, as he can't stand when people insult her, especially the disgusting faces they make while shit-talking her, so if he does well in training, he believes she won't receive such treatment anymore. She smiles, saying she's sure he's wondering why people treat them so poorly. Then she explains how she fell in love with his father during a mission, but it was difficult to be with him due to him being a normal knight, so she ruined her core in circuits and left the family. Then she tells him he actually had an older sister too. She was 2 years older than him, and her name was Sia, but they were ambushed, and his father wasn't that strong, and she was pregnant. So they couldn't do anything, but his father hired guards to keep them safe. But they were obviously terrible since they came way too late, and both his father and sister were brutally murdered, and she didn't know what else to do but return to the family, which is why she is treated so poorly, but it's not like she can say anything against it. He thinks about how she is selfish. She threw away responsibility in the name of love and crawled back afterward, and he understands why they treat her so poorly now. But she's the first person to show him affection, even though she is selfish. She is the only mother he's ever had. He asks her if she regrets her choices. She says no, she doesn't, since she lived like she was invisible in the family. But after leaving, she felt like a real person. She was happy then, and she is happy now. She says she's sorry for being a bad mother. He tells her that he's fine, so she shouldn't worry about it. He smiles, looking at her, saying he will get his revenge after helping her get her position back in the family. She begins to cry and bowl like a baby. It cuts to a bit after, and he says reassuring her was difficult, and he'll need to check the ring of fire and sleep, since he doesn't have long until training. He begins to check it, saying it's spinning faster now that he's a 3-star. He wonders how the later levels will be. A blue aura begins to appear in front of him and begins to speak, saying it's finally time and that his rage has reached them. And they introduce themselves as Frat, the second lord of the demon realm. Leon is confused, and we see that his hidden trait is being unlocked. In his rage, Bath says that if he sacrifices his soul and body, he will realize that Leon is just a child. Leon asks who he is, and Wrath says he wants to know who he is. The rage he felt wasn't an emotion a child could feel. Then it notices something saying, "Never mind, it was truly his rage, and he's just hiding it deep down." Wrath then asks for him to give his body and soul, and he will help get the revenge he desires. Leon wonders if it's the rage towards Tarif that he is feeling. He says he doesn't need Wrath's help, as he'll do it himself. Wrath says he's misunderstanding something, as this isn't a negotiation. The decision is already made, and he begins to grow in size over Lang, who begins to feel an intense cold. Wrath says all he needs to do is give his body up and dive at him. As he gets closer to Leon, it begins to cover the room in blue or even freeze some water. Leon says it feels like his mind is freezing over. Then Wrath begins to take on the appearance of death, saying to let the rage flow, and even if he is a strong, he will die. Leon says he's enduring due to his water tribute, but this isn't just cold. Wrath is consistently stimulating his rage from within. Then he whispers into Lancier's death Leon and says he doesn't know what Wrath would do if given the body, so he cannot let it be a possibility. Wrath says it's easier to accept and there's no reason to be holding on. He wants to minimize the damages since he'll be using his body, but he leaves him no choice. He'll just swallow him whole without waiting. Lon says his body feels like it's breaking, and he cannot hold on much longer. At this rate, he will die. Then he notices something saying that if he can endure the cult because of his water tribute, then he can lower the pain with his ring of fire. It's the only option he has to survive currently. He begins to channel it, and Wrath begins to grow nervous as he is being furred off. He says, "How is this possible even if he just awakened? It makes no sense." Leon firmly tells him he will get revenge on his own and let some ghosts use his body. Wrath is angry. He caught a direct like that, saying he was a demon lord. Here he calls Wrath, saying he just awakened, so it must be why he cannot use his full power. Then he notices the status window appear, saying a new ability is unlocked. Wrath says that's his window, so why does the lion have it? Then Wrath explains he made the system, so why is it with him? Len asks why he made it, and Wrath says he isn't answering, but Leon understands it's to gauge progress, and Wrath is surprised, so Leon punches through him and says he hit him with mana just in case. But it assures him he doesn't have a physical form since nobody has come in despite the ruckus, so only he can probably see him. He shoos right away until he says enough, then flies off and goes to his wrist, turning into a flower bracelet. Wrath says it hasn't been long since his seal was lifted, but once he regains power, he wants to get rid of him, as soon as possible, but that might remove the system too. And who knows what he would do to Sylvia, so he will keep him close and restrict him, so he can grow faster. Then he asks why he's a flower bracelet, and Wrath says to respect his preferences. Leon agrees. Then the next day we see Helen comforting Sylvia as Leon comes down the stairs saying he's ready and he will be heading off now to the training hole.